The crystal chandelier trembled as Ethan Whitmore's fist slammed against the mahogany doorframe. His face twisted with rage as he witnessed a scene that would shatter everything he believed about his family. There, in the dimly lit master bedroom of the Whitmore estate, sat Maya Williams, the black housemaid he'd known since childhood, cradling his sobbing father in her arms, whispering words that would expose 20 years of buried secrets. What happens when the woman you've dismissed as merely the help holds the key to your mother's mysterious death, your wife's web of lies, and your father's desperate fight for survival? Stay with me until the end of this incredible true story, and don't forget to comment your city below. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. The autumn rain hammered against the windows of the Whitmore estate, like an accusation, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing within its walls. Maya Williams pressed her weathered hands against the cold glass, watching the manicured gardens blur into abstract patterns of green and gold. 23 years she had walked these halls, 23 years of polishing silver that would never grace her own table of making beds she would never sleep in, of keeping secrets that weren't hers to tell. But tonight, everything would change. The grandfather clock in the main foyer chimed 7 times, its bronze voice echoing through corridors, lined with portraits of stern-faced Whitmores dating back 2 centuries. Maya straightened her uniform, the same black dress with white collar she'd worn for over 2 decades, and made her way up the marble staircase toward Harold Whitmore's suite. Her footsteps were silent, practiced from years of moving through this house like a ghost, seen only when needed, heard even less. Harold hadn't been himself lately. The once commanding patriarch of the Whitmore Empire, who had built his fortune from a single textile mill into a multinational corporation, now spent his days staring at photographs of his late wife Eleanor, muttering her name in his sleep. At 78, his mind flickered like a candle in the wind, sometimes blazing with clarity, other times guttering into confusion. Maya knocked softly on the heavy oak door. "Mr. Harold, it's Maya. Time for your evening medication." The response was a crash, followed by a strangled cry that sent ice through her veins. Without hesitation, she burst through the door to find Harold on the floor beside his overturned nightstand, pills scattered like tiny white accusations across the Persian rug. His face was purple, his hands clawing at his throat, eyes bulging with terror. "Mr. Harold?" Maya dropped to her knees, her training from the first aid course she'd taken years ago flooding back. She turned him on his side, pounding his back with measured force. "Breathe for me, Mr. Harold. Come on now, breathe." The object, a large pill that Camila had insisted he take despite his difficulty swallowing, dislodged with a wet cough. Harold gasped, drawing in air like a drowning man breaking the surface. His thin fingers wrapped around Maya's arm with surprising strength. "Maya," he wheezed, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. She's trying to kill me." "Shh, Mr. Harold. You're confused. Mrs. Camila would never—" "No." His grip tightened, his eyes suddenly sharp with a clarity she hadn't seen in months. "The pills. Different. Making me forget. Eleanor warned me. In the dream, Eleanor warned me about the snake in our garden." Maya's blood ran cold. She'd noticed the changes in Harold's medication, the way Camila had taken over his medical care, dismissing Dr. Morrison, who had treated Harold for 15 years. She'd seen the new prescriptions, the unfamiliar bottles, the way Harold seemed more disoriented after each dose. "Mr. Harold, we need to get you to a hospital." "No hospitals. She has friends there. Listen to me, Maya." He pulled her closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The study. Behind Eleanor's portrait. The truth about everything. About how she died. About what Camila—" The door slammed open with such force that one of the hinges cracked. Ethan Whitmore stood in the doorway, his 6'3" frame filling the space like a storm cloud. His Italian suit was impeccable despite the late hour, his dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and inherited arrogance. Behind him, Camila glided in like a serpent in silk. Where Ethan was all explosive energy, his wife was calculated coldness. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled into a severe chignon, her designer dress the color of blood in the lamplight. Her green eyes contacts Maya knew, hiding the brown eyes she'd been born with, fixed on the scene before her, with an expression of carefully crafted shock. "What the hell is going on here?" Ethan's voice boomed through the room. Maya helped Harold to sit up, her arms still supporting his frail frame. "Mr. Harold was choking. I heard him fall and... Get your hands off my father." The words came out as a growl, primal and threatening. "Ethan, please, I said, get your hands off him." Maya gently released Harold, who immediately reached for her again, his fingers trembling. "No, son, you don't understand." Maya saved. "I understand perfectly." Ethan's eyes, the same steel gray as his father's, but lacking any of the older man's warmth, bore into Maya with an intensity that made her step back. "I come home to find my father in his confused state being manipulated by someone who should know their place." Manipulated? Maya's voice rose despite herself. 23 years of held tongues and bitten lips suddenly felt like a dam about to burst. "Mr. Ethan, I've cared for this family since before you could tie your own shoes. I changed your diapers, taught you to read, when your tutors gave up, held you, when you cried for your mother. That was then." Camilla's voice sliced through Maya's words like a scalpel. "This is now. And now we find you in a rather compromising position with a vulnerable elderly man who happens to control a significant fortune." The accusation hung in the air like a noose. "You can't be serious," Maya breathed. Camila stepped forward, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor with metronomic precision. "Oh, but I am. How convenient that Harold's choking episode happened when no one else was around. How convenient that you were right there to save him. Tell me, Maya, how much did you think this act of heroism might be worth? A mention in the will, perhaps. A little bonus for all those years of service. You're twisting everything." "Am I, Ethan, darling? Haven't you noticed how Maya always seems to be around during Harold's episodes? How she's always the one finding him in distress." Ethan's jaw clenched, the muscle ticking with barely controlled rage. "Now that you mention it." "Son," Harold struggled to speak, his voice still raspy from choking. "You're making a mistake. Maya is family. She's been nothing but family." Camila laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Is that what we're calling the help now? How progressive." Maya felt something inside her snap, not break, but snap into place like a puzzle piece that had been forced into the wrong spot for far too long. "You want to talk about family, Mrs. Whitmore? Let's talk about family. Let's talk about the sedatives you've been mixing into Mr. Harold's evening tea. Let's talk about the documents you've been having him sign during his confused episodes. Let's talk about why you dismissed Dr. Chantal Morrison and brought in that quack Brennan, who seems to prescribe whatever you tell him to." The room went silent, except for Harold's labored breathing. Camilla's perfectly composed face flickered for just a moment, a crack in the mask that Maya had been watching for months. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by an expression full of wounded indignation. "How dare you?" Camila whispered, her hand flying to her chest in a gesture worthy of a soap opera. "Ethan, are you going to let her speak to me this way? These wild accusations." Ethan moved so fast, Maya didn't see it coming. One moment he was by the door, the next his hand was connecting with her cheek, with a crack that seemed to echo through the centuries-old house. The force of it sent her stumbling backward, her hip connecting painfully with the corner of Harold's dresser. "Ethan!" Harold's voice cracked with horror. "What have you done?" Maya's hand went to her face, feeling the heat already rising from her skin. In 23 years, she had never been struck in this house. She had endured indignities, yes, being ignored at Christmas while handing out presents, eating alone in the kitchen, while serving elaborate dinners, having her birthday forgotten year after year. But never this. Never violence. "You've forgotten yourself," Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet now, which was somehow worse than his shouting. "You've forgotten that you are an employee. Nothing more. You live here at our discretion, eat our food, enjoy our protection. And this is how you repay us, with paranoid delusions about my wife." "They're not delusions," Maya said quietly, straightening, despite the pain radiating through her face and hip. "And deep down you know it. You've seen the changes in your father. You've noticed how Camila always has papers ready for him to sign when he's most confused. You've seen the way she isolates him, keeps visitors away, controls his medication." "Enough!" Ethan roared. "You're done here. Pack your things. I want you out of this house tonight." "Ethan, no." Harold struggled to stand, his legs shaking. "If Maya goes, I go. She's the only one who actually cares about—" "You're not going anywhere, Dad." Camila moved to Harold's side with practiced concern, her hands gentle but firm as she guided him back to the bed. "You're confused. This must be so upsetting for you. Here, take this. It will help calm you down." She produced a small white pill from her pocket. She always seemed to have them ready, and before anyone could protest, she had pressed it between Harold's lips with a glass of water. "No." Harold tried to refuse, but Camilla's grip on the glass was insistent. "It's just your regular medication, Harold. The one Dr. Brennan prescribed. You trust Dr. Brennan, don't you?" Maya watched in horror as Harold's eyes began to glaze over within minutes. Whatever Camila had given him, it was strong and fast-acting. His protests died on his lips as he sank back against the pillows, his gaze becoming unfocused. "There we go," Camila cooed, smoothing the blankets over him. "Much better. Sleep now." She turned to Maya, and for a moment the mask slipped entirely. The look in her eyes was predatory, triumphant. "You have 1 hour. Take only what you brought with you. Everything else belongs to the estate." "This isn't over," Maya said quietly. "Oh, but it is." Camila smiled, her veneered teeth gleaming. "And if you're thinking about going to the authorities with your wild tales, remember that it will be your word, a dismissed housemaid with a grudge against the Whitmore family. Who do you think they'll believe?" Maya looked at Ethan, searching for any sign of the boy she'd raised, the child who had once called her Auntie Maya and brought her drawings from school. But that boy was gone, replaced by this cold stranger who wore his father's face but had inherited none of his heart. "I thought you were better than this," she said to him. "Your mother would be ashamed." Something flickered in Ethan's eyes at the mention of Eleanor Payne, perhaps, or guilt, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "Don't you dare speak about my mother. You didn't know her." "I knew her better than you think," Maya said quietly. "And she knew things. Things about—" She glanced at Camila. "About dangers she saw coming. Paranoid delusions seem to be contagious in this house," Camila said smoothly. "Perhaps it's best that you leave before you infect anyone else with your fantasies." Maya moved toward the door, pausing beside Harold's bed. The old man's eyes were closed now, but she saw tears sliding down his cheeks. She leaned down, pretending to adjust his blanket, and whispered, I won't abandon you. I promise. His fingers twitched slightly. He had heard her. As she reached the door, she turned back one last time. Mr. Ethan, you asked who I think I am. I'm the woman who held your hand at your mother's funeral when you were too proud to cry in front of the cameras. I'm the one who stayed up all night with you when you had nightmares about losing her. I'm the person who has loved this family more than my own life for over 2 decades. And I'm the only one in this room who actually gives a damn whether your father lives or dies. She walked out, leaving silence in her wake. The walk to her room, a small space in the servants' wing that had been her home for more than half her life, felt both endless and far too short. Her few possessions fit into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, photographs from the early days when the Whitmores had still included her in family pictures, a jewelry box Eleanor had given her one Christmas, her mother's Bible clothes that were mostly variations of her uniform. As she packed, her mind raced. The study. Harold had mentioned the study behind Eleanor's portrait. She knew exactly which one, the oil painting of Eleanor in the rose garden that hung behind Harold's desk. But the study was locked. Camila had insisted on it after Harold's confusion had worsened, claiming she didn't want him wandering in there and disturbing important documents. Maya glanced at her phone. 40 minutes left. The main house would be settling now. Ethan probably pouring himself a scotch in the library, Camila likely ensuring Harold was thoroughly sedated. The security guards wouldn't change shift for another hour. She made her decision. Leaving her packed bags by her door, Maya slipped through the servants' passages she knew better than the lines on her own hands. These hidden corridors, built when the house was constructed in 1894, allowed servants to move unseen through the mansion. She'd discovered them in her first year and had used them countless times to be where she was needed before anyone even realized they needed her. The study was dark moonlight filtering through the tall windows to cast everything in shades of silver and shadow. Eleanor's portrait seemed to watch her as she approached those kind eyes that had held such sadness in the last months of her life. Eleanor had died suddenly 10 years ago, a heart attack, the coroner had said, though she'd had no history of heart problems. Maya ran her fingers along the frame, feeling for any mechanism. Nothing. She pressed against the wall behind it. Solid. Then, remembering Harold's exact words, behind Eleanor's portrait, she carefully lifted the heavy painting from its hooks. There, set into the wall, was a small safe she'd never known existed. The combination. She needed the combination. Think, Maya. What would Harold use? Not his birthday, too obvious. Not his anniversary. Eleanor's birthday. Of course. Her fingers trembling, she spun the dial, 7 to 15:48. The safe clicked open. Inside were 3 things that made her blood run cold: a thick manila envelope, a small digital recorder, and a letter in Eleanor's distinctive handwriting, with "to be opened only upon my death" written across the front. Maya grabbed all 3, her heart pounding so loud she was sure the whole house could hear it. She had just replaced the portrait when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Camila's voice sharp and commanding. "Check the study. I want to make sure everything is locked." There was no time to reach the servants' passage. Maya ducked behind the heavy curtains just as the door opened, pressing herself against the cold window, praying the fabric wouldn't betray her presence. "It's locked, Mrs. Whitmore," a security guard's voice said. "I asked you to check inside," Camila snapped. Keys jangled. The door opened. Light flooded the room. Maya held her breath, her body rigid against the glass. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see Camila standing in the doorway, her silhouette sharp against the hallway light. The woman's eyes swept the room like a predator sensing prey. "Something's different," Camila murmured. Looks the same to me, ma'am, the guard said. Camila stepped into the room, her heels clicking slowly across the floor. She stopped directly in front of Eleanor's portrait, staring up at it. "Hello, Eleanor," she said softly, and there was something in her tone that made Maya's skin crawl. "Still watching over everything, are you? Well, not for much longer. Soon I'll have this room redone. Maybe I'll donate your portrait to some museum. Or maybe I'll just burn it." She laughed, a sound devoid of any warmth, and turned to leave. "Lock it up. And I want the cameras in this hallway checked. If that maid comes anywhere near this room, I want to know about it." The door closed. The lock clicked. Maya waited, counting to 100, then 200, before sliding out from behind the curtains. Her escape through the servants' passages was swift and silent, the documents burning like fire against her chest, where she'd hidden them under her uniform. Back in her room, she had 10 minutes left. She opened Eleanor's letter first, her hands shaking as she unfolded the delicate paper. "My dearest Harold, if you are reading this, then my fears have come to pass. I am not ill despite what the doctors say. The headaches, the dizzy spells, the heart palpitations, they started after Camila came into our Levesques. I've had my blood tested privately. The results are in the envelope. Digitalis poisoning administered slowly over time. Untraceable unless specifically looked for, mimicking heart disease perfectly. I've recorded conversations, gathered evidence. It's all here. Camila is not who she claims to be. Her nursing credentials are forged. Her background is fabricated. She targeted our son deliberately, knowing our wealth, knowing Ethan's vulnerabilities after losing his fiancée in that car accident. I confronted her last week. She smiled and told me I'd be dead within the month, and no one would believe the paranoid delusions of a dying woman. She's right about one thing: I am dying. But I'm not delusional. Protect yourself. Protect Ethan. He'll resist the truth she's made sure of, that turning him against anyone who might expose her. But Maya will help you. Trust Maya. She's the only one in that house who loves our family without agenda. All my love, Eleanor." Maya's vision blurred with tears. She'd suspected something, but this was murder. Eleanor had been murdered, and her killer had been sleeping in her bed, spending her money, poisoning her husband for 10 years. A sharp knock at her door made her jump. "Time's up!" Camilla's voice triumphant and cold. Maya quickly hid the documents in the lining of her suitcase, a hidden pocket she'd sewn years ago for keeping her passport and important papers safe. She opened the door to find Camila flanked by 2 security guards. "I need to check your bags," Camila announced. "Make sure you're not taking anything that doesn't belong to you." "Everything here is mine," Maya said quietly. Camila's search was thorough and humiliating. She dumped Maya's clothes on the bed, rifled through her photographs, even opened her mother's Bible and shook it for hidden papers. But she didn't find the concealed pocket. "Satisfied?" Maya asked when Camila finally stepped back. "Hardly, but you're not worth any more of my time." Camila nodded to the guards. "Escort her out. Make sure she leaves the property. If she returns, call the police and have her arrested for trespassing." The walk through the house she'd called home for 23 years was a blur. Staff members she'd worked alongside for decades averted their eyes, not wanting to risk Camila's wrath by showing sympathy. Only James, the elderly gardener, dared to nod slightly as she passed his weathered face, sad but understanding. As the iron gates of the Whitmore estate closed behind her with a final clang, Maya stood in the drizzling rain, with her suitcases looking back at the mansion lit up against the dark sky. In one of the upper windows, she could see Harold's silhouette, propped up in bed, a prisoner in his own home. "I'll come back for you," she whispered to the wind. "I promise." She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she needed. Robert Chen, an investigative journalist, who had once tried to do a story on the Whitmore family, but had been shut down by their lawyers. He'd given her his card, telling her to call if she ever had information the public needed to know. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. "Chen here. Mr. Chen, this is Maya Williams. I worked for the Whitmore family." "Maya, it's nearly midnight. Is everything—" "I have proof that Eleanor Whitmore was murdered." Silence. "Then where are you?" "Outside the estate. They just threw me out." "Don't move. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Maya, don't talk to anyone else. Don't go anywhere public. If what you're saying is true, you're in danger." As Maya waited in the rain, she thought about Ethan's face when he'd struck her the way 23 years of relationship had meant nothing in that moment. She thought about Harold, drugged and helpless, slowly being killed by the woman who'd already murdered his wife. She thought about Eleanor, who'd seen it all coming but couldn't stop it. The Whitmores had been her family. She'd given them everything: her youth, her devotion, her silence when silence was asked of her. But tonight, Ethan's hand across her face had severed more than just their relationship. It had cut the last thread of loyalty that might have kept her quiet. A car's headlights cut through the rain, slowing as it approached. Robert Chen's beat-up Honda looked out of place on the manicured street that led to the Whitmore estate, but to Maya it looked like salvation. "Get in," he said, his face grim behind wire-rimmed glasses. "We have a lot of work to do." As the car pulled away, Maya took one last look at the mansion. Every window blazed with light except one. Harold's room was dark now, Camila having no doubt ensured he would sleep through the night and well into tomorrow, confused and helpless when he woke. But tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, the truth would begin its work. The documents in her suitcase felt like they were burning through the fabric, demanding to be seen, to be heard. Eleanor's voice from beyond the grave, Harold's desperate plea for help, and her own silenced years of observation, they would all speak now. The rain intensified as they drove into the night, and Maya thought it fitting. Every storm had to break sometime, and when this one did, it would wash away 20 years of lies, revealing the rot beneath the Whitmore family's gleaming surface. She pulled out the digital recorder from her pocket. She'd risked taking it out during the car ride, and pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the car, weak but determined. "This is Eleanor Whitmore. Today is March 15th, and I believe my daughter-in-law, Camila Whitmore, is slowly poisoning me. If something happens to me, please investigate. She's already talking about Harold's medications, about his mental state. She'll go after him next. Someone needs to stop her. Someone needs to protect my family from the woman my son brought into our home." Robert Chen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. This is huge." "There's more," Maya said quietly. "So much more. Financial documents, medical records, recorded conversations. She's been planning this for years." "We'll need to be careful," Robert said, his investigative instincts already kicking in. "The Whitmores have powerful lawyers' connections everywhere. We need incontrovertible proof, multiple sources, a trail that even their money can't make disappear." Maya nodded, watching the rain streak across the windshield. "I know where to get it. But we'll need help. There's a security guard, Marcus, who's been suspicious of Camila. And Dr. Morrison, Harold's old physician, Camila had him dismissed, but he kept copies of Harold's medical records. He told me once he thought something was off about Harold's sudden decline." "Good. That's good. We'll build a case so solid that not even the Whitmore money can bury it." Robert glanced at her, noting the swelling already visible on her cheek. We should get that documented, and you need somewhere safe to stay. I have a cousin in the city, Maya said, but first we need to make copies of everything. If Camila realizes what I have, she'll come after you, Robert finished grimly. Don't worry. I know people who can help. Lawyers who aren't afraid of the Whitmore's cops, who still believe in justice over paychecks. They drove in silence for a moment, before Robert spoke again. Can I ask you something? Why now? You must have suspected something for a while. What made you finally act? Maya touched her swollen cheek, thinking of Ethan's face, twisted in rage, of Harold's tears, of Eleanor's portrait watching from the wall. For 23 years, I convinced myself that staying silent was loyalty, that keeping their secrets was love. But tonight, I realized something. What's that? Silence in the face of evil isn't loyalty. It's complicity. And I've been complicit long enough. The Honda disappeared into the night, carrying with it 23 years of secrets and the promise of a reckoning that would shake the Whitmore empire to its foundations. Behind them, the mansion stood like a monument to wealth and power, not knowing that its foundations were already beginning to crack. In his drugged sleep, Harold Whitmore dreamed of Eleanor. She was young again, standing in their rose garden, but her face was sad. "The roses have thorns, my love," she kept saying. "Beautiful roses, but the thorns will make us bleed." He tried to reach for her, but his arms were too heavy, his voice trapped in his throat. And in the dream, Camilla's laughter echoed through the garden, turning all the roses black. The cousin's apartment in Queens was a far cry from the Whitmore estate, a cramped two-bedroom with water stains on the ceiling and radiators that clanged like prisoners rattling their chains. But to Maya, sitting at the scratched kitchen table with Eleanor's documents spread before her, like pieces of a terrible puzzle, it felt like a fortress. Robert Chen sat across from her, his laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard as he cross-referenced dates, medical records, and financial transactions. They'd been at it for 3 hours now, and the picture emerging was more horrifying than either had imagined. "Look at this," Robert said, turning his screen toward her. 3 months before Eleanor's death, Camila opened a separate account in the Cayman Islands. Small transfers at first, then larger ones, all from different Whitmore subsidiary accounts. "We're talking about millions, Maya." Maya studied the screen, her finger tracing the trail of numbers. She was bleeding them dry even before Eleanor died, and Harold never noticed. Harold trusted his son's wife. Why would he look? Robert pulled up another document. "But here's where it gets interesting. Brennan, the physician, Camila brought in. He lost his medical license in Nevada 5 years ago for overprescribing opioids. He was practicing under a different name." My God. Maya's hand went to her mouth. She brought in a disgraced doctor to slowly poison Harold. It's the perfect crime. An elderly man with legitimate health issues, a concerned daughter-in-law managing his care, a compliant doctor writing whatever prescriptions she wants. Who would question it? Maya's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Maya." The voice was barely a whisper, but she recognized it immediately. "Marcus." "Thank God. Listen, I don't have much time. Something's happening at the house. Mrs. Whitmore is in Harold's room with that doctor. They've been in there for an hour, and I heard her say something about accelerating the timeline. I think they're—" The line went dead. Maya stood so fast her chair toppled backward. "We have to go back. Now." "Are you insane? You'll be arrested the moment you step on the property." "Harold is in danger. Real immediate danger." She grabbed her coat. "I won't let her kill him like she killed Eleanor." Robert closed his laptop with a snap. "Then we do this smart. I'll call my contact at the NYPD, and we're going to need backup. While Robert made calls, Maya dialed Dr. Morrison's number. The retired physician answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep, until Maya explained the situation. I knew it, he said, suddenly alert. Harold's symptoms never made sense. The cognitive decline was too rapid, too selective. He would have moments of perfect clarity followed by complete confusion. That's not how dementia works. Can you meet us at the estate? Maya, I can't just... Please, we need a real doctor there. Someone who can examine Harold and contradict whatever Brennan is saying. There was a pause. Give me 20 minutes. The drive back to the Whitmore estate felt like diving into the mouth of a shark. Robert had managed to get 2 police detectives to meet them. Detectives Sarah Walsh and Tom Rodriguez, both from the Financial Crimes Division, who had been investigating irregularities in Whitmore Corporation accounts. We can't enter without probable cause, Detective Walsh explained as they sat in an unmarked car 2 blocks from the estate. An employee being fired and making accusations isn't enough. What about this, Maya pulled out the digital recorder playing Eleanor's message. The detectives exchanged glances. It's compelling, but it's also 10 years old. We need something current, something that shows immediate danger. Maya's phone rang. Marcus again. They're moving him, he said urgently. An ambulance just pulled up. No sirens, no lights. Mrs. Whitmore is saying he had a stroke. That's our probable cause, Detective Rodriguez said, already calling for backup. If they're transporting him against medical advice or without proper authorization. The gates of the Whitmore estate were open. The ambulance backed up to the main entrance. Maya could see Camila directing the paramedics, her voice carrying across the circular drive. Careful with him. He's very fragile. Dr. Brennan will ride with us to the hospital. Stop right there. Detective Walsh's voice cut through the night air like a blade. Nobody moves until we verify what's happening here. Camila spun around, her composed mask slipping for just a moment before she recovered. Officers, this is a medical emergency. My father-in-law has had a stroke. Every second counts. Then you won't mind if Dr. Morrison examines him. Maya stepped out from behind the police car, Dr. Morrison beside her. You... Camila's face contorted with rage. You're trespassing. Officers, arrest her immediately. Actually, ma'am, we have some questions for you first. Detective Rodriguez moved toward the ambulance. Dr. Brennan, is it? We'd like to see your medical credentials. Brennan, a thin man with nervous eyes, started backing away. This is highly irregular. What's irregular is practicing medicine under a false name, Dr. Morrison said, pushing past Camila to the ambulance. My God, look at him. Harold lay on the stretcher, his skin gray, his breathing shallow. An IV dripped steadily into his arm, the bag unmarked. What's in the IV? Dr. Morrison demanded. Just saline, Brennan stammered. Dr. Morrison pulled out a syringe, drawing a sample from the IV port. We'll see about that. Someone call a real ambulance. This man needs immediate medical attention. This is kidnapping, Camila shrieked. Ethan, get out here! Ethan emerged from the house, his face a mask of controlled fury. He took in the scene, the police, Maya, his father, on the stretcher, and his jaw tightened. What's the meaning of this bullshit? Mr. Whitmore. Detective Walsh approached him carefully. We have reason to believe your father may be in danger. We need to take him to the hospital for a full examination. My wife is his medical proxy. She makes all decisions about his care. Actually, Maya said quietly, she's not. Everyone turned to stare at her. Maya pulled out a document from her coat, one she'd found in Eleanor's safe. This is Harold's medical directive, signed and notarized 3 months ago during one of his lucid periods. It specifically states that in the event of his incapacitation, Dr. Morrison is to be consulted on all medical decisions. Camila lunged for the paper, but Detective Rodriguez intercepted her. "I'll take that as evidence, thank you." "It's fake," Camila sputtered. "She forged it." "The notary is my colleague," Dr. Morrison said calmly. "I was present when Harold signed it. He was very clear about his wishes. He said he didn't trust the care he was receiving." The real ambulance arrived, sirens wailing. As paramedics transferred Harold to their vehicle, he stirred slightly, his eyes finding Maya. "Maya," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The roses. Eleanor's roses." "I know, Mr. Harold. Rest now. You're safe." Dr. Morrison climbed into the ambulance with him. "I'm going with him. Someone needs to make sure he gets proper care." As the ambulance pulled away, Ethan rounded on Maya. "You orchestrated all this. You've turned my father against us." "No, Ethan. Your wife did that all by herself." Maya pulled out Eleanor's letter. "Your mother wrote this before she died. She knew Camila was poisoning her." Ethan's face went white. "That's impossible." "Is it? Think, Ethan. Really think. When did your mother's health problems start?" "Right after Camila moved in." "When did your father's confusion begin? Right after your mother died. And who benefited from both?" "Shut up." Camila's composure finally shattered completely. "You know nothing. You're just the help of nobody who cleaned our toilets and made our beds. Who's going to believe you?" "They'll believe the evidence," Robert Chen said, holding up his laptop. "Financial records, medical files, recorded conversations. You've been stealing from the Whitmores for years, Mrs. Whitmore. Or should I say, Ms. Patricia Hendricks." Camila went very still. "Oh yes," Robert continued. "We know about your real identity. The nursing degree you forged, the background you fabricated. You're quite the con artist. This isn't even your first wealthy family, is it? The Montclairs in Boston, the Ashfords in Philadelphia, both lost patriarchs to sudden illnesses after you entered their lives." "You can't prove anything," Camila said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "Actually, we can." Detective Walsh held up her phone. "The lab just sent preliminary results on that IV fluid. It contains enough potassium chloride to cause cardiac arrest. You were going to kill him tonight. Make it look like a stroke." Ethan staggered backward, as if he'd been punched. "Camila." She turned to him, her face cycling through expressions, innocence, hurt, anger, before settling on something cold and calculating. "You stupid, weak man. Just like your father. So easy to manipulate, so desperate for approval. Do you really think I could have loved you? You were nothing but a means to an end." The words hit Ethan like physical blows. Maya watched as 20 years of marriage crumbled in seconds, the truth too obvious to deny any longer. "You killed my mother," he said, his voice hollow. Camila laughed high and sharp. "She was going to expose me. The noble Eleanor, always watching, always suspicious. She thought she was so clever, gathering her evidence. But I was cleverer." "Mrs. Whitmore, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and theft." Detective Rodriguez moved forward with handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." "I know my rights," Camila snapped. "And I know the best lawyers money can buy. The money I earned putting up with this pathetic family for 20 years. As they led her away, she turned back to Maya one last time. "You think you've won, you've destroyed everything. Ethan will never forgive you for this. The family will implode. The company will fail, and you'll still be nothing but a maid who got lucky." Maya met her gaze steadily. "I'd rather be an honest maid than a murderous liar." After Camila was gone, silence settled over the estate's entrance like a shroud. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the spot where his wife had been. "Ethan," Maya said gently. "Don't." His voice was broken. "Just don't. You were right. About everything. And I hit you. I hit you for telling the truth." He looked at her then, and she saw he was crying. "God, Maya, I'm so sorry." "We need to focus on your father now," Maya said. "He's going to need you. The real you, not the man Camila turned you into." "I don't even know who that is anymore." "I do," Maya said firmly. "He's the boy who used to sneak cookies to share with me in the kitchen. The young man who cried at his mother's funeral when he thought no one was looking. The son who deep down never stopped loving his father even when Camila tried to turn you against him." Ethan's phone rang. Dr. Morrison. "He's stable," the doctor reported. "But it was close. Another hour and the damage would have been irreversible. He's asking for both of you." The hospital room was a stark contrast to Harold's ornate bedroom at the estate, white walls, beeping machines, the antiseptic smell of disinfectant. But Harold's eyes were clear for the first time in months, the fog of Camilla's drugs finally lifting. "Maya," he said, reaching for her hand. "You came back. I promised I would." He turned to Ethan. "Son. Dad. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I should have seen it. Should have protected you." "She fooled us all," Harold said weakly. "Even your mother at first. Eleanor only started suspecting near the end, and by then it was too late." "The roses," Maya said suddenly. "You kept mentioning Eleanor's roses." Harold managed a small smile. "The rose garden. She planted something there before she died. Said if anything happened to her, to look beneath the heritage roses, the ones she brought from her grandmother's garden." Ethan stood. "I'll go, right now." "Take Maya with you," Harold said. "And son. Whatever you find, we face it together. No more secrets in this family." The drive back to the estate was surreal. Police tape crossed the entrance, investigators still processing the scene. Detective Walsh accompanied them to the rose garden where Eleanor's heritage roses bloomed, despite the lateness of the season, their red petals almost black in the moonlight. "Here," Maya said, kneeling by the oldest bush. "The soil's been disturbed." They dug carefully and 3 feet down found a metal box wrapped in plastic. Inside were more documents, photos, and a USB drive. "What is it?" Detective Walsh asked. Ethan was staring at a photograph. "It's Camila, but younger, with another man, and..." His voice broke. "That's the Montclair family, the ones Robert mentioned. My God, she's standing over their father's hospital bed, smiling." The USB drive contained video files. Eleanor had installed hidden cameras in the house recording Camila's activities. They watched in horror as Camila ground pills into Harold's food, added drops to his drinks, met with Dr. Brennan to discuss increasing the dosage. "She documented everything," Maya breathed. "Eleanor knew she was dying, so she made sure there would be proof." One file was labeled "For Ethan." His mother's face appeared on screen, thin and pale but determined. "My darling boy," Eleanor said. "If you're watching this, then Maya found the evidence. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from her. She's very clever, very manipulative. She'll make you doubt everyone who truly loves you. But remember, this love doesn't isolate you. It doesn't make you suspicious of old friends and loyal family. Real love brings people together. Maya has been with our family for so long, she is family. Trust her, Ethan. When I'm gone, trust her to help you find your way back to who you really are." Ethan broke down completely, then sobbing, like the child Maya remembered, all pretense and pride stripped away. She held him as she had when he was young, letting him grieve not just for his mother, but for the 20 years of lies he'd lived. "We have enough," Detective Walsh said quietly. "With all this evidence, Camila Patricia will never see freedom again. And we'll investigate the other families too. There may be more victims." As dawn broke over the Whitmore estate, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Maya stood in Eleanor's garden, Ethan beside her. The house behind them would need to be reclaimed, shadows chased from every corner, truth brought to every hidden space. "Will you come back?" Ethan asked. "Not as staff, as family. Dad needs you, and I need to learn how to be the man my mother believed I could bond to." Maya looked at the roses, thinking of Eleanor's faith, Harold's trust, and her own 23 years in this place. "The house needs healing," she said finally. "We all do." "Is that a yes?" "It's a beginning," Maya said. "We tear down the lies and build something true. Your mother's legacy, not Camila's poison." From the house, Marcus appeared, followed by other staff members who had hidden in the shadows during Camila's reign, afraid to speak up. They gathered in the garden, drawn by the promise of change. "Mr. Ethan," James the gardener said, his old voice strong. "We all saw things, knew things, but she had us so scared." "No more fear," Ethan said firmly. "No more secrets. We're going to do what my mother would have wanted, make this a home again, not a prison." As the sun climbed higher, bathing the estate in warm light, Maya felt something shift in the air. The oppressive weight that had settled over the house since Eleanor's death was lifting. It would take time to heal all the wounds, to rebuild trust, to create something new from the ashes of betrayal. But standing there in Eleanor's rose garden, surrounded by people ready to speak truth after years of silence, Maya knew they had already begun. The ambulance carrying Harold would return in a few days, bringing him back not to a house of lies, but to a home being reborn. The fortune Camila had stolen would be recovered. The damage she'd done would be slowly repaired. And in the study, Eleanor's portrait would be rehung with honor, watching over a family that had finally found its way back to love. The morning sun, streaming through the hospital windows, did nothing to warm the chill that had settled into Ethan's bones as he sat beside his father's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of Harold's chest. 3 days had passed since Camila's arrest, and each day brought new revelations that made him question everything about the last 20 years of his life. Maya entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafeteria. She'd barely left the hospital, splitting her time between Harold's room and meetings with the prosecutors who were building their case against Camila. The bruise on her cheek had faded to a sickly yellow-green, a reminder of his shameful violence that made Ethan flinch every time he saw it. "The forensic accountants found more accounts," Maya said, handing him a coffee. "Switzerland, Singapore, Dubai. She was planning to disappear." "With how much?" 47 million at current count." Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he lifted the cup to his lips. She was just waiting for Dad to die. Then what would she have killed me too? Maya didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. Harold stirred his eyes, fluttering open. For a moment, confusion clouded his features, a familiar sight over the past months, but then clarity returned, sharp and painful. "Ethan, Maya." His voice was stronger than it had been in months. "What day is it?" "Thursday, Mr. Harold," Maya said gently. "You've been sleeping for a few hours." "I dreamed about Eleanor," Harold said, struggling to sit up. "She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her over Camila's laughter." He looked at his son. How could I have been so blind? She fooled all of us, Dad. No, Harold said firmly. Not all of us. Maya saw through her. Your mother saw through her. But I was too proud to listen, too stubborn, to believe that someone I'd welcomed into our family could be so evil. A knock at the door interrupted them. Detective Walsh entered, her expression grim. We need to talk. There's been a development. What kind of development? Ethan stood instinctively, moving closer to his father's bed. Camila's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal. She says she has information about other crimes, other victims. But she'll only talk if we take the death penalty off the table. Death penalty? Maya's voice was sharp with surprise. For attempted murder. Not just attempted murder. Walsh pulled out a tablet showing them a news headline. Serial black widow suspected in deaths of 4 wealthy husbands. 4. Ethan sank back into his chair. The Montclairs in Boston, the Ashfords in Philadelphia, the Brennans in Miami, and a family in Seattle we just learned about. All the same pattern: wealthy widower, sudden illness, young wife inherits everything. Patricia Hendricks has been doing this for 25 years. Harold closed his eyes. Eleanor. My Eleanor was going to be another statistic. There's more, Walsh continued. She wants to talk to you, Mr. Whitmore. Ethan, not Harold, says she has something you need to hear. Absolutely not, Maya said immediately. She's manipulative, dangerous. I'll go, Ethan said quietly. Ethan, no. You don't have to subject yourself to. Yes, I do. He looked at Maya, his eyes hollow but determined. I need to understand. I lived with this woman for 20 years. I shared a bed with her. I thought I loved her. I need to know what was real, if anything was. The county jail was a 40-minute drive from the hospital. Maya insisted on coming despite Ethan's protests. You're not facing her alone, she said firmly. Not again. The visiting room was stark and cold, reinforced glass, separating them from the inmates' side. When Camila was brought in, Maya barely recognized her. Without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked smaller, older, ordinary. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on her frame, and her platinum hair showed dark roots. But her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, with that predatory gleam that Maya now realized had always been there. Camila sat down slowly, her movements deliberate, and picked up the phone. Ethan did the same on their side. Hello, darling, she said, her voice still carrying that false sweetness that had fooled them all. Don't call me that. Ethan's jaw was rigid. Say what you have to say. So cold. And here I thought you'd want to reminisce about our wedding day. You cried during your vows, remember, so touching. I almost felt bad for you. Almost. Well, you were so pathetic. Still grieving that insipid fiancé who died in the car accident. So desperate for someone to love you. It was almost too easy. Maya watched Ethan's knuckles go white as he gripped the phone. Rebecca's death. Was that you too? Camila laughed. The sound distorted through the phone connection. Oh, Ethan. Always so slow to catch on. Of course it was me. That little brunette was in the way. You were supposed to be single, vulnerable, ready for comfort. A few cut brake lines, a rainy night, a winding road, tragic accident. Though I must admit, I didn't expect you to mourn her quite so long. 2 years of playing the patient, understanding friend before you finally noticed me as more than your father's nurse. Ethan's face had gone gray. Maya reached for his free hand under the counter, squeezing it to keep him grounded. You killed Rebecca. You killed my mother. How many others? Does it matter? They were all the same. Weak men with too much money and not enough sense. Your father would have been the perfect final score. Confused enough that no one would question his death, wealthy enough to set me up for life. Is that all we were to you, a score? For the first time, something flickered in Camilla's eyes. You want to know if I ever felt anything real, if any moment in our 20 years meant something? She leaned forward, her face almost touching the glass. There was one moment. The day your mother figured it out. The look in her eyes when she realized what I was, that she couldn't stop me, that no one would believe her. That was real. That was beautiful. Ethan stood abruptly, the phone clattering against the wall. We're done here. Wait. Camilla's voice was muffled but urgent through the abandoned phone. Maya picked it up. What? Maya asked coldly. You think you've won, don't you? The loyal servant finally gets her reward. But I know things. About Eleanor. About what she did before she died. Things that would destroy this family's precious reputation. You're lying. Artitis. Am I? Ask Harold about the Riverside account. Ask him about the payments Eleanor made every month for 15 years. Ask him about Sarah Chen. The phone went dead as the guard led Camila away, but her smile through the glass was triumphant. Back in the car, Ethan was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, Rebecca. She killed Rebecca. 3 people dead because of me. Because I brought that monster into our lives. No, Maya said firmly. She killed them because she's a sociopath. You were just another victim. I hit you, Ethan said suddenly. She manipulated me into hitting you, the one person who was trying to protect us. You were protecting your father, or you thought you were. She was very good at twisting reality. Stop making excuses for me. He turned to face her. For 23 years you cared for our family. You raised me when my parents were too busy building their empire. You held us together when Mom died. And I repaid you with violence and dismissal. I'm no better than her. You're nothing like her, Maya said fiercely. You want to know the difference. You're here feeling genuine remorse. She's in there still playing games, still trying to hurt people. You were deceived. She's the deceiver. When they returned to the hospital, Harold was awake and agitated, trying to get out of bed, despite the nurses' protests. Dad, what are you doing? The Riverside account, Harold said urgently. She knows about the Riverside account. Maya and Ethan exchanged glances. Camila mentioned that. And someone named Sarah Chen. Harold's face crumpled. Oh, Eleanor, I'm so sorry. He looked at them with tears streaming down his face. Your mother. She had an affair. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Ethan sank into the nearest chair. It was 15 years before she died. Harold continued, his voice broken. I was never home, always traveling, building the company. She was lonely. There was a young doctor at her charity, Sarah Chen. They fell in love. Mom had an affair. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. It lasted 6 months. Then Eleanor ended it. She came to me, confessed everything. We went to counseling, worked through it. I forgave her. We rebuilt our marriage stronger than before. But Sarah was pregnant. Maya gasped. Eleanor had another child. No, Sarah was already pregnant by her husband when the affair started. But after it ended, Sarah's husband left her. Eleanor felt responsible. She set up the Riverside account to send money every month to help with the child's education expenses. It was her way of making amends. And Camila found out. She must have. Eleanor was always so careful, But towards the end, when she was getting sick, she must have slipped up somehow. Ethan stood and walked to the window, his back to them. So Mom wasn't perfect. She was human. She made mistakes. He turned around, and Maya was surprised to see him smiling slightly. That actually makes me feel better. All my life I tried to live up to this image of perfection. The perfect Whitmore son, the perfect husband, the perfect businessman, and it made me cruel, rigid, blind to what was really happening. Harold reached out to his son. Your mother's affair doesn't diminish who she was. She made a mistake, took responsibility, and tried to make it right. That's what good people do. Is Sarah Chen still alive? The child? Maya asked. I don't know. Eleanor handled everything. After she died, I kept the payments going, but I never made contact. We should find them, Ethan said. If Camila knows, she might try to use it somehow. Better we reach out first. Detective Walsh arrived then with more news. The DA is rejecting the plea deal. With the evidence we have, we don't need her cooperation. She's going away for life, possibly facing federal charges for interstate fraud and murder. What about Dr. Brennan? Maya asked. Singing like a canary. He's admitted to everything, the false prescriptions, the altered medical records. Claims Camila threatened to expose his past if he didn't cooperate. Everyone was being blackmailed or manipulated, Harold said sadly. She turned our home into a web of fear and secrets. Over the next week, as Harold grew stronger and prepared for discharge, they began the painful process of untangling 20 years of deception. The forensic accountants found more hidden accounts, more stolen funds. The prosecutor built a case that revealed Camila had been planning Harold's murder for months, gradually increasing the doses of various medications to make his death look natural. Robert Chen published a series of articles that exposed not just Camila's crimes, but the systemic failures that had allowed her to operate for so long. The medical boards that hadn't properly tracked Dr. Brennan's license revocation. The banks that hadn't questioned suspicious transfers. The legal system that made it too easy for predators to target vulnerable elderly people. Maya found herself at the center of it all, the quiet maid who had brought down a serial killer. Interview requests poured in, but she declined them all. This isn't my story, she told Robert. It's the Whitmore's story. I was just the messenger. But Ethan saw it differently. You were the guardian, he told her one evening as they sat in Harold's hospital room. You stood watch even when we pushed you away. Harold was being discharged the next morning, and they were discussing where he would go. The estate felt tainted, haunted by too many bad memories. We could sell it, Ethan suggested. Start fresh somewhere else. No, Harold said firmly. That house has been in our family for over a century. I won't let her take that from us too. We reclaim it. We fill it with light and truth and love again. It needs work, Maya said. Not just physical renovation. It needs spiritual cleansing. Then we'll do that work, Harold said. Together. That night, unable to sleep, Maya walked the hospital corridors. She found herself in the chapel, a small, quiet space with non-denominational symbols and soft lighting. To her surprise, Ethan was already there, sitting in the back row. Couldn't sleep either, she asked, sitting beside him. I keep thinking about Rebecca. We were going to have children, build a life together, and Camila took that from me before I even met her. She shaped my entire adult life and I never knew it. You can't think like that. It'll drive you mad. How do you do it, Maya? How do you forgive I hit you? I threw you out. I chose her over you over and over again. Maya was quiet for a moment, considering. My grandmother used to say that holding on to anger is like holding on to a hot coal. You're the only one who gets burned. I don't forgive for the other person. I forgive for myself so I can move forward. I don't know if I can forgive myself. Then start smaller. Forgive your mother for being human. Forgive your father for being trusting. Forgive yourself for being deceived. And then maybe you can start to rebuild. Ethan nodded slowly. Will you help not as an employee, as family? Dad needs you, and I need to learn who I am without her influence. I'll help, but things have to be different. No more hierarchy, no more the help and the family. We're all human beings deserving of respect. Agreed. We'll restructure everything. Fair wages for all staff, health care, retirement plans, everything Mom would have wanted. A light knock interrupted them. Dr. Morrison stood in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know Harold's final test results are in. The damage from the medications is reversible. With proper treatment, he should make a full recovery. Thank God, Ethan breathed. There's something else, Dr. Morrison said. I've been going through his medical records from the past 2 years. The combinations of drugs Camila had him on. It's diabolical. She wasn't just making him confused. She was specifically targeting the parts of his brain that process trust and recognition. She was literally rewiring his brain to distrust everyone except her. That's why he turned against Maya, Ethan realized. Why he seemed to forget how long she'd been with us. Exactly. It's a form of chemical gaslighting. I've never seen anything like it. As Dr. Morrison left, Maya and Ethan sat in the quiet chapel processing this new horror. She was erasing us, Ethan said finally, erasing our connections to each other. But she failed, Maya said. We're still here, still connected, still family. The next morning, as they prepared to take Harold home, Detective Walsh called with unexpected news. Sarah Chen wants to meet with you, she told Ethan. Camila contacted her from jail, tried to blackmail her. Sarah went straight to the police. She says she has letters from Eleanor that the family should have. The meeting was arranged for that afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Sarah Chen was a small, elegant woman in her 60s, her dark hair streaked with silver. With her was a young man in his 30s, Dr. James Chen, the child Eleanor had helped raise from afar. I never wanted anything from your family, Sarah said immediately. Eleanor's generosity saved us, but I never asked for it. We're not here to accuse anyone of anything, Harold said gently. We just want to understand. Sarah pulled out a box of letters. Eleanor wrote to me every month for 15 years. Even after I remarried, even after I told her we were fine, she kept writing. She said it helped her knowing we were okay. Maya picked up one of the letters, dated just weeks before Eleanor's death. Dear Sarah, I know I have no right to continued correspondence, but writing to you has become my confession, my absolution. You forgave me long ago, but I've never forgiven myself for the pain I caused. I see now that my loneliness was not an excuse. Harold is a good man who deserved better. You deserved better. We all did. There's a darkness in my house now. Ethan's new wife watches me with calculating eyes. She thinks I don't notice the small cruelties, the manipulations. I fear for my family when I'm gone. But I'm tired, Sarah. So tired of fighting shadows. Please know that you and James remain in my prayers. The good he does as a doctor, the lives he saves, that's Eleanor's true legacy, not the money or the estate or the company. With love and eternal gratitude for your forgiveness. Eleanor. Harold was crying openly as he read. She was so alone at the end, fighting Camila by herself. She wasn't alone, James Chen said quietly. She had Maya. She wrote about you, he said, turning to Maya. How you were the only one she trusted. How you saw what others couldn't or wouldn't see. Camila tried to use our existence to hurt you, Sarah said. But I wanted you to know that Eleanor faced her mistakes with courage. She turned her guilt into generosity, her pain into purpose. Would you... Harold hesitated. Would you and James consider joining us for dinner sometime, not as a secret to be hidden, but as part of Eleanor's extended legacy? Sarah smiled sadly. That's kind, but I think some doors should remain closed. James and I have our own lives. But thank you for not letting Camila turn Eleanor's kindness into something ugly. As the Chens left, Maya saw Ethan watching them go with a strange expression. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking about all the secrets we kept, all the things we hid. Camila thrived in those shadows. Maybe if we'd been more open, more honest, she couldn't have taken root the way she did. Maybe, Harold said. Or maybe she would have found other ways. Evil doesn't need shadows, son. It just uses whatever tools are available. The drive back to the estate was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. As they turned into the circular drive, Maya was struck by how different the house looked in the afternoon sun. Not sinister or imposing, just a house waiting to be filled with life again. Marcus met them at the door, along with James the gardener and several other staff members. Welcome home, Mr. Harold, Marcus said, and Maya heard genuine warmth in his voice. Thank you, Marcus. But things are going to be different now. No more Mr. Harold, just Harold. And this goes for everyone. We're restructuring this household. No more upstairs-downstairs divide. We're all part of this home. Sir, I mean Harold, James spoke up. We've been talking among the staff. We all saw things over the years, things we should have spoken up about. We want to apologize. No, Harold said firmly. No apologies. We were all victims of her manipulation. What matters is that we're here now, ready to rebuild. That evening, for the first time in years, the entire household, family, and staff ate dinner together in the main dining room. The conversation was awkward at first, decades of ingrained hierarchy hard to break. But gradually, as stories were shared and memories exchanged, the walls began to come down. Maya, Harold said, raising his glass. You saved my life. You saved this family. How do we even begin to thank you? You don't, Maya said simply. You live. You love. You make sure nothing like this ever happens again. There must be something we can do, Ethan insisted. Maya thought for a moment. There is something. The Whitmore Foundation, Eleanor's charity. It's been dormant since she died. Bring it back. Focus on protecting vulnerable elderly people from predators like Camila. Fund research into elder abuse. Create safeguards. Yes, Harold said immediately. Yes. Eleanor would have loved that. Will you run it, Maya? I'm a housekeeper, not a foundation director. You're a woman who saw through a master manipulator, Ethan said. Who gathered evidence, contacted authorities, and saved lives. I think you're exactly who should run it. As the evening wore on, Maya found herself in Eleanor's rose garden. The heritage roses were in full bloom, their fragrance heavy in the night air. She heard footsteps and turned to find Ethan approaching. I owe you more than an apology, he said. I owe you a debt I can never repay. You owe me nothing. I did what anyone should do when they see wrong being done. But not everyone does it. Most people stay silent, stay safe. He paused, struggling with his words. That night, when I struck you, is forgiven, Maya interrupted. Not forgotten, we should never forget the lessons pain teaches us, but forgiven. How can you be so gracious? Because I've seen what the alternative looks like. Camila held on to every slight, every grievance, used them as weapons. I won't live that way. They stood in comfortable silence, the roses rustling in the evening breeze. Mom planted these roses as a symbol, Ethan said suddenly. She told me once that roses need both sun and rain. They have thorns but produce beauty. She said life was like that, painful and beautiful all at once. She was right. Maya, can I ask you something? That night before everything happened, you were in Dad's room. He was crying. What did he say to you? Maya remembered that moment, Harold's desperate grip, his tears. He said he was scared, that he could feel himself disappearing, losing pieces of his mind, his memories. He said the only time he felt real anymore was when I was there, because I remembered who he used to be. Ethan's voice was thick with emotion. You held on to him when the rest of us let go. You didn't let go, you were just lost in Camilla's maze. We all were in different ways. A light went on in Harold's bedroom window, and they could see his silhouette moving around, finally free in his own home. It's going to take time, Ethan said, to heal from all of this, to rebuild trust. Time is something we have now, Maya replied. Camila stole a lot from this family, but she didn't steal your future. That's still yours to write. As they walked back toward the house, Ethan stopped. I want to show you something. He led her to his father's study, where Eleanor's portrait had been rehung in its place of honor. But next to it was a new addition, a photograph Maya had never seen before. It was from Ethan's college graduation. The official photos showed just the family, Harold, Eleanor, and Ethan in their formal poses. But this one was different. It was candid, taken at the celebration afterward. And there in the background, Maya could see herself watching with unmistakable pride as Ethan received his diploma. Mom kept this in her personal album, Ethan explained. She wrote on the back. Maya turned the photo over. In Eleanor's elegant script, our complete family. The tears came then, 23 years of unshed tears, for all the moments she'd been excluded, all the times she'd been reminded of her place, all the love she'd given without expectation of return. You were always family, Ethan said quietly. We just forgot it for a while. But you never did. You never forgot who we really were, even when we forgot ourselves. The tears on Maya's face had barely dried when the study door burst open. Marcus stood there, his security uniform disheveled, his face grave with urgency. We have a problem, he said. There's someone at the gate claiming to be Camilla's daughter. The words landed like a physical blow. Ethan's face drained of color as he gripped the edge of his father's desk. That's impossible. We never had children. She says her name is Jessica Hendricks, Marcus continued. She's 28 years old. She has documentation. Maya felt the room spin slightly. 28 years old. That would mean Camila had her before she ever met Ethan, before she became part of the Whitmore family. Another secret, another lie buried in the foundation of their lives. Don't let her in, Ethan said immediately. Wait. Maya put a hand on his arm. If she really is Camilla's daughter, she might have information. She might be another victim. Or another predator, Ethan countered. Like mother, like daughter. You can't judge her for her mother's crimes, Maya said gently. Let me talk to her. Through the intercom, at least. Harold appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. Despite his recent ordeal, there was a new steadiness to him, as if surviving Camila's attempted murder had given him a second wind. Marcus, bring up the security feed. Let's see who we're dealing with. The monitor on Harold's desk flickered to life, showing a young woman standing at the estate's gates. She bore little resemblance to Camila, dark hair, instead of platinum blonde, softer features, clothes that were clean but clearly worn. She stood in the rain that had begun to fall, no umbrella, looking up at the security camera, with an expression that Maya recognized all too well, the look of someone who had been running for a very long time. "Please," the woman said through the intercom, her voice carrying despite the rain. "I know you have no reason to trust me, but I have information about my mother that you need to hear, about the others she hurt, about where she hid things." Ethan reached for the intercom button. "How do we know you're really her daughter?" The woman held up a birth certificate to the camera, then a driver's license. "Jessica Marie Hendricks, born in Reno, Nevada. My mother left when I was 3. I've been looking for her ever since, trying to warn people. I was too late to help you. I'm sorry." There was something in her voice, a weariness, a genuine sorrow that made Maya lean forward. "Let her in," she said quietly. "Maya, no," Ethan protested. "Look at her," Maya insisted. "Really look. She's terrified, and she's been standing in the rain for who knows how long. Whatever she is, she's not Camila." Harold studied the monitor for a long moment. "Bring her to the front parlor. Marcus, stay with her. We'll hear what she has to say." 20 minutes later, Jessica Hendricks sat on the edge of an antique chair, a towel around her shoulders, a cup of tea trembling in her hands. Up close, Maya could see the exhaustion etched into her young face, the kind that came from years of carrying a burden too heavy to bear. "You said Camila left when you were 3. Harold began, his voice carefully neutral. "Who raised you?" "My grandmother. My real grandmother, not one of my mother's victims." Jessica's laugh was bitter. "She tried to protect me from the truth for years, but I figured it out eventually. The way money would suddenly appear when we needed it most. The news stories about wealthy men dying mysteriously, always with a young wife who disappeared afterward." "You knew what she was doing." Ethan's voice was sharp with accusation. "I suspected. By the time I was old enough to understand, to try to do something about it, she was already Patricia Whitmore, safely embedded in your family." Jessica set down her teacup, her hands shaking too badly to hold it. "I tried to warn you. 4 years ago, I sent letters to your father, to you, Mr. Whitmore. They were intercepted." "By Camila," Maya said. It wasn't a question. Jessica nodded. "She found me instead. Showed up at my apartment in Portland. Told me if I ever tried to contact you again, she'd frame me for her crimes. She had documents, forged evidence that would put me at the scenes. She'd been planning for that contingency my whole life." "Dear God," Harold breathed. "Her own daughter." "I was never her daughter," Jessica said fiercely. "I was a mistake. A complication from before she figured out that killing husbands was easier than raising children. She told me that once when I was 16 and tried to confront her." Maya watched the young woman carefully. Everything about her spoke of truth, the worn shoes that had walked too many miles, the careful way she held herself as if ready to run at any moment, the shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. "You said you had information," Ethan said, still suspicious but less hostile. Jessica reached into her bag, pulling out a leather journal. "My grandmother kept records. Every time my mother contacted her for money, every time she changed her identity. Names, dates, locations. Grandma was building a case, but she died before she could take it to the authorities. Heart attack." She paused. "Though now I wonder if it really was." Harold took the journal, flipping through pages of meticulous notes in spidery handwriting. "This goes back 30 years. My mother's been doing this since she was 22. Your wife, Mr. Whitmore, Ethan's mother, She wasn't the first murder. She was the fifth. The room fell silent, except for the sound of rain against the windows. Maya watched Ethan process this information, saw the moment when the last of his resistance crumbled. His wife hadn't just been a killer. She'd been a serial killer who had perfected her craft long before she'd entered their lives. "There's more," Jessica continued. "She had a partner. Dr. Brennan," Harold said. "No, before him. Someone who taught her how to forge documents, how to create new identities, how to move money without leaving trails. Someone who's still out there." "Who?" Ethan demanded. "I don't know his real name. She called him the architect. He was the one who chose the targets, did the research. She was just the weapon." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying there's someone else out there planning these murders?" "Not anymore," Jessica said. "They had a falling out about 3 years ago. That's why she got sloppy with you. Why she had to use someone like Brennan instead of a more sophisticated accomplice. The architect abandoned her." "We need to tell Detective Walsh," Harold said immediately. "I already have. I went to them first. They said to come here to tell you everything I know." Jessica looked at each of them in turn. "I know you have no reason to trust me. I know my mother's blood runs in my veins. But I've spent my entire adult life trying to stop her, trying to make amends for crimes I didn't commit." "What do you want from us?" Ethan asked bluntly. Jessica seemed surprised by the question. "Nothing. I wanted to apologize, to see if there was anything I could do to help, and to warn you." "Warn us about what?" Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew. "My mother doesn't lose. Ever. Even in prison, she'll find a way to hurt you. She has money hidden that the FBI hasn't found. She has contacts people who owe her favors or fear her enough to do what she asks." Jessica stood pulling the towel tighter around her shoulders. "You need to be careful. All of you." "Where will you go?" Maya asked. "I don't know, somewhere new. Somewhere where the Hendricks name means nothing." She moved toward the door, then paused. "My grandmother used to say that we can't choose our blood, but we can choose our path. I've chosen to spend my life making sure no one else suffers because of my mother. It's not much of a life, but it's honest." "Wait," Harold said suddenly. "You don't have to run anymore. Your mother's in custody. Her network is being dismantled." "You don't understand," Jessica said softly. "I've been running so long I don't know how to stop." Maya stood something in the young woman's words, resonating deeply. "I understand that feeling. The feeling that you don't quite belong anywhere, that you're always on the outside looking in. But running isn't living. It's just surviving. What else is there for someone like me?" "There's rebuilding," Ethan said unexpectedly. Everyone turned to look at him. "We're all rebuilding here. Our family, our trust, our lives. Maybe you could rebuild too." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "You can't be serious. I'm her daughter." "You're also the person who spent years trying to stop her," Harold said gently. "Who tried to warn us. Who came here in the rain to help strangers who had every reason to turn you away." "The Whitmore Foundation," Maya said suddenly. "We're restarting it, focusing on preventing elder abuse, protecting vulnerable people from predators. Who better to help than someone who understands how these predators think, how they operate?" Jessica sank back into the chair, overwhelmed. I can't." "You don't have to decide now," Maya said. "But at least stay somewhere safe tonight. There's a guest house on the property. Marcus can set you up there." "Why?" Jessica asked, her voice breaking. Why would you show me any kindness? Because, Harold said simply, that's how we defeat people like your mother. Not with more cruelty, but with the kindness she never understood. As Marcus led Jessica to the guest house, Ethan turned to his father and Maya. Are we making a mistake trusting her? Maybe, Harold admitted. But I'd rather make mistakes of trust than suspicion. We've lived in suspicion for too long. The next morning brought a circus of media attention. Robert Chen's latest article had dropped overnight, revealing the connection between Camila and the mysterious deaths spanning 3 decades. News vans lined the street outside the estate, reporters shouting questions at anyone who entered or left. Maya stood at the window watching the spectacle when her phone rang. Detective Walsh. We need you to come to the station, the detective said. All of you. Camila's lawyer is making noise about a deal and the DA wants you there. The police station was a maze of reporters and cameras. They were ushered in through a back entrance, finding themselves in a conference room with District Attorney Margaret Foster, a woman whose steel-gray hair and sharp eyes had seen too many criminals try to game the system. Camila Whitmore, or rather Patricia Hendricks, wants to make a deal, Foster said without preamble. She'll give us the architect in exchange for life in prison instead of death row. No deal, Ethan said immediately. Mr. Whitmore, the architect, could still be out there targeting other families. Then find him another way, Ethan interrupted. My mother is dead because of her. Rebecca is dead. 4 other innocent people are dead. She doesn't get to bargain. What does Jessica say? Maya asked suddenly. Foster looked surprised. Miss Hendricks. She's advocated for the deal. She wants the architect caught. Of course she does, Harold said thoughtfully. He's the one who created the monster that was her mother. She wants him stopped. There's something else, Foster said, pulling out a file. We've been going through Camila's possessions. We found this. She placed a photograph on the table. It showed a much younger Camila with a distinguished-looking man in his 50s. But what made Maya's blood run cold was the background they were standing in front of the Whitmore estate. When was this taken? Harold demanded. Based on the cars in the background about 25 years ago, before she officially met your family. She was casing us, Ethan said, his voice hollow. For years she was planning this. The architect chose your family, Foster explained. You were wealthy, vulnerable after Mrs. Whitmore's mother had died, leaving Harold a widower for the first time. You were supposed to be the target then, but Harold remarried Eleanor too quickly, so they waited. 20 years, Maya breathed. They waited 20 years to strike. Patient predators are the most dangerous kind, Foster said, which is why we need to find the architect. Take the deal, Harold said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. Dad, no. Ethan, listen to me. Your mother is already gone. Rebecca is gone. Nothing we do to Camila will bring them back. But if we can stop this architect from creating more Camilas, from destroying more families, then their deaths mean something. It's not justice, Ethan protested. No, Harold agreed. But it might be prevention. And that's what Eleanor would have wanted to protect others. The vote was taken. Harold and Maya voted for the deal. Ethan abstained, unable to agree, but unwilling to override his father. Foster left to make arrangements. As they waited, Jessica was brought in looking even more fragile in the harsh fluorescent lights of the police station. Thank you, she said quietly, for agreeing to the deal. We didn't do it for her, Ethan said coldly. I know, but still. She sat down carefully, as if afraid she might break. I've been thinking about your offer, about the foundation. I don't know if I'm ready to stop running, but maybe Maybe I could help from a distance, consult on cases, help identify patterns. That would be valuable, Maya said encouragingly. There's something else, Jessica said, pulling out a flash drive. I've been tracking my mother's activities for years. This has everything: patterns, methods, warning signs. If you're serious about the foundation, this could help you save lives. Harold took the drive with reverence. Your grandmother would be proud. I hope so. Jessica stood to leave, then turned back. Mr. Whitmore, Ethan, I know nothing I say can undo what she did to you. But you should know, in her twisted way, I think she did care about you. As much as someone like her could care about anyone. Don't, Ethan said sharply. Don't try to humanize her. I'm not. Humans don't do what she did. I'm just saying that of all her victims, you lasted the longest. 20 years. That wasn't the plan. The plan was 5 years maximum. Something about you made her stay. Lucky me, Ethan said bitterly. After Jessica left, they were brought to an observation room. Through the one-way glass, they could see Camila in an orange jumpsuit, her attorney beside her facing Foster, and a team of FBI agents. The architect's name is Malcolm Cross, Camila said, her voice carrying through the speakers. He's 73 now, lives in Switzerland. He trained me, chose the targets, managed the money. He has 4 other protégés that I know of, all currently embedded with wealthy families. Maya grabbed Ethan's hand as he swayed on his feet. 4 other families were living with ticking time bombs just as they had. Names, Foster demanded. Camila smiled, that cold, calculating smile they all remembered. After I get my deal in writing. The next 3 hours were a blur of legal documents, phone calls to Switzerland, and FBI mobilization. By the end of it, Camila had her deal, life without parole, and law enforcement had names, addresses, and enough information to potentially save 4 families from suffering the Whitmore's fate. As they prepared to leave, Foster stopped them. There's one more thing. Camila wants to speak to Harold. Alone. Absolutely not, Ethan and Maya said in unison. I'll do it, Harold said quietly. Dad, I need to, son. I need to look her in the eyes one last time, knowing what she is. I need to close this chapter. The meeting was brief, watched by guards and lawyers. Maya and Ethan observed from behind the glass, tense and ready to intervene. Hello, Harold, Camila said, her tone almost conversational. You look well. Prison food must agree with you more than my cooking. What do you want, Patricia? She flinched at the use of her real name. I wanted you to know that it wasn't all an act. The disgust, the manipulation, yes. But there were moments watching old movies with you working in Eleanor's garden where I almost forgot what I was there to do. Is that supposed to comfort me? No. It's supposed to haunt you. The idea that somewhere inside the monster, there was a glimpse of something that could have been human if circumstances had been different. Harold stood. Circumstances don't make monsters, Patricia. Choices do. You chose to kill. You chose to destroy. And now you'll choose to rot in prison for the rest of your life. As he turned to leave, she called out, "The rose garden, 3rd bush from the left. I buried something there for you." Harold didn't respond, walking out without looking back. That evening, they stood in Eleanor's garden with shovels and flashlights. The 3rd rose bush yielded a small metal box, weathered and dirty. Inside was a single item, Eleanor's missing wedding ring, the one they thought had been lost at the hospital when she died. She kept it, Harold said, his voice breaking, as a trophy. Or a reminder, Maya said gently. Even monsters need to remember they're monsters. They reburied the ring beneath Eleanor's favorite rose bush, saying prayers for the woman who had loved this garden, this family, this life that had been cut short by evil, wearing a familiar face. As they walked back to the house, Jessica emerged from the guest cottage. "I've decided," she announced. "I'll stay. Not permanently, but long enough to help establish the foundation, to teach you what I know about identifying predators like my mother." "What changed your mind?" Maya asked. "I realized something. I've been running from her my whole life, but she's in prison now. She can't hurt anyone else. Which means for the first time I can stop running from who she is and start becoming who I am." "And who is that?" Ethan asked, his tone softer than before. "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out somewhere that feels—" She paused, searching for the word safe. Over the following weeks, the Whitmore estate transformed. The oppressive atmosphere that had settled during Camila's reign lifted like fog burning off in sunlight. Harold grew stronger each day, the medications leaving his system, his mind sharpening back to its former clarity. He threw himself into the foundation work with an energy Maya hadn't seen in years. The staff, no longer divided by rigid hierarchy, began to work as a team. Marcus implemented new security measures, but ones designed to protect rather than isolate. James restored Eleanor's garden to its former glory, adding a memorial stone that read simply, "Eleanor Whitmore, beloved, truthful, eternal." Ethan struggled the most with the transition. 20 years of marriage, even a false one, left marks that didn't fade easily. He threw himself into work, reorganizing the company, implementing safeguards that would prevent anyone from embezzling, as Camila had done. But at night, Maya would find him in the library staring at photo albums, trying to identify which moments had been real. "Does it matter?" she asked one evening, sitting beside him with 2 cups of tea. "How can it not matter? 20 years, Maya. 20 years of my life, built on a lie." "Not all of it was a lie. Your work was real. Your love for your parents was real. The good you did in the world was real. She couldn't fake or steal those things." "She killed the woman I was going to marry," Ethan said quietly. "Before I even met her, she decided my life for me." "No," Maya said firmly. "She altered your path, yes. But every choice you made after Rebecca's death was yours. The choice to grieve, to heal, to love again, even if that love was misdirected, those were your choices. How do I trust again? How do I ever believe that someone's feelings are genuine? You start small. You trust that the sun will rise tomorrow. You trust that your father loves you. You trust that I'm here not because I'm paid to be, but because this is my family too." "And romantic love," Ethan asked, vulnerability clear in his voice, "will come when you're ready, when you've learned to trust yourself again." Jessica proved invaluable to the foundation's development. Her insights into predatory behavior, learned through years of tracking her mother, helped them create screening protocols that would protect vulnerable elderly clients. She worked tirelessly, as if trying to atone for crimes she hadn't committed. One afternoon, Maya found her in Eleanor's study, surrounded by papers and looking overwhelmed. "I don't know how to do this," Jessica admitted. "The legal parts, the organizational structure. I know how to identify predators, but I don't know how to build something positive." "That's why we work together," Maya said, sitting beside her. "You bring the knowledge, Harold brings the business acumen, Ethan brings the resources, and I bring—" She paused, considering. "The heart," Jessica finished. "You bring the heart that holds it all together. We all bring heart. Even you, though you try to hide it." Jessica smiled sadly. "I'm Patricia Hendricks's daughter. How much heart can I really have? You're also your grandmother's granddaughter, the woman who kept meticulous records to try to stop a killer. That's your inheritance, too." As autumn turned to winter, the Whitmore Foundation officially launched. The press conference was held at the estate in the ballroom that had once hosted Camila's elaborate parties, designed to showcase wealth and power. Now it hosted something different. Hope. Harold stood at the podium looking healthier than he had in years. "The Whitmore Foundation is born from tragedy," he began. "My wife Eleanor was murdered by someone we trusted. I was nearly killed by the same person. We were victims of a predator who specialized in destroying families from within." He paused, looking at Ethan, Maya, and even Jessica, who stood at the back, trying to remain invisible. "But we survived, and we learned. And now we want to ensure that other families don't suffer as we did. The foundation will provide resources, education, and intervention services for elderly individuals who may be victims of financial, medical, or emotional abuse." The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from families who had experienced similar tragedies. Volunteers offered their services. Other victims of elder abuse came forward with their stories. But with the attention came scrutiny. 3 weeks after the launch, a reporter named David Kemp published an article questioning Jessica's involvement with the foundation. "Can the daughter of a serial killer really be trusted to protect the vulnerable?" the headline read. Ethan wanted to respond with legal action, but Jessica stopped him. "He's right to question it. My mother fooled everyone for decades. Why should they trust that I'm different?" "Because you are different," Maya insisted. "Prove it," Jessica said, and there was a challenge in her voice but also a plea. The proof came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Chen, the son, Sarah Chen, had raised with Eleanor's financial help, reached out. He was now a renowned geriatric psychiatrist, and he offered to join the foundation's board. "My existence is proof that good can come from complicated situations," he said at his first board meeting. "Eleanor Whitmore's affair with my mother could have destroyed multiple families. Instead, her guilt became generosity, and that generosity became my education, my career, my ability to help others. That's the kind of transformation the foundation represents." Harold was particularly moved by James's presence. "Your mother forgave Eleanor. Can you forgive this family for the pain that affair caused?" "There's nothing to forgive," James said simply. "We're all just humans trying to do better than the generation before us." As winter deepened, a strange peace settled over the Whitmore estate. The daily dramas gave way to routine foundation work, estate management, the slow process of healing. Maya had officially moved from the servants' quarters to a suite in the main house, though she still felt more comfortable in the kitchen than the formal dining room. One evening, she was making soup, the same soup she'd made for 23 years, when Ethan joined her. "Teach me," he said suddenly. "Teach you what to cook." Camila never cooked, said it was beneath her. "I want to learn something real, something that nourishes instead of destroys." So began an unlikely ritual. Every evening, Ethan would join Maya in the kitchen, learning not just recipes, but the meditation of chopping vegetables, the patience of waiting for bread to rise, the satisfaction of feeding people you cared about. "You know," he said one night, kneading dough with focused intensity, "I think I understand now why you stayed all those years. It wasn't about the job or even the loyalty. It was about this creating something warm in a cold world." "It was about family," Maya corrected, "even when that family didn't recognize me as such. We were fools. You were human, and humans make mistakes." "You don't," Ethan said, then caught himself. "That sounded like an accusation. I meant it as admiration." Maya laughed, flour dusting her dark hands as she shaped dinner rolls. "Oh, I make plenty of mistakes. I stayed silent when I should have spoken. I enabled the dysfunction by making it comfortable. I let my love for this family blind me to the dangers growing within it. But you acted when it mattered most. After 23 years of not acting, that's hardly heroic. It's human, Ethan said, echoing her earlier words. And that's better than heroic. It's real. The architect Malcolm Cross was arrested in Geneva on a cold February morning. The news came during breakfast, Detective Walsh calling with updates. 4 families had been saved from embedded predators, all trained by Cross, all following Camila's pattern. He's confessing to everything, Walsh reported. Seems almost proud of it. He's calling it social engineering at its finest. Monster, Harold muttered. Actually, that's what's terrifying, Walsh continued. He's completely sane, tested by multiple psychiatrists. He just doesn't see other people as people. He sees them as puzzles to solve, safes to crack. After the call, Jessica stood abruptly and walked out to the garden. Maya found her there, standing in the snow, shaking. He created her, Jessica said. My mother might have been troubled, but he turned her into a weapon. How many lives were destroyed because one man decided to play God? Too many. Maya agreed. But he's stopped now. She's stopped. The cycle is broken. Is it? What about me? What about whatever poison is in my blood? Maya took the younger woman's hands. Listen to me. You are not your mother. You are not defined by her choices or her crimes. You are Jessica, who spent years trying to stop a killer, who helps protect the vulnerable, who stands in a snowy garden worried about a poison that exists only in her fears. How can you be sure? Because I've watched you. For months now, I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion helping others. I've seen you cry over the stories of abuse victims. I've seen you celebrate when we prevent a tragedy. Your mother never felt those things. She wasn't capable. But you are. That's the difference. That evening brought an unexpected visitor. Sarah Chen arrived asking to speak with Harold privately. But Harold insisted Maya and Ethan stay. I owe you an apology, Sarah said. When we met before, I was cold, distant. I was protecting myself and James. But I've been thinking about Eleanor's letters, about what she would have wanted. She pulled out a small box. These are letters Eleanor wrote to James but never sent. She wanted him to have them someday when the truth came out. I think that time is now. Harold took the box with trembling hands. Thank you. There's something else, Sarah continued. James and I have talked. We'd like to be part of the foundation, not just professionally, but as family. Extended, complicated, unconventional family, but family nonetheless, if you'll have us. Eleanor would have loved that, Harold said, tears flowing freely. She would have, Sarah agreed. She wrote once that families aren't just about blood or marriage certificates. They're about choosing to show up for each other even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Sarah Chen's words about family hung in the air like a blessing as spring arrived at the Whitmore estate, bringing with it a sense of renewal that went deeper than the blooming gardens. The foundation had saved 3 elderly victims in its first 6 months of operation, and each success felt like a small victory against the darkness Camila had represented. Maya stood in what had once been Camila's personal office, now transformed into the foundation's nerve center. The designer furniture had been replaced with functional desks, the vanity mirrors with boards tracking cases, the cold perfectionism with warm purpose. Jessica worked at one desk, phone pressed to her ear as she spoke with a concerned daughter in Michigan, whose father had recently remarried a much younger woman. Yes, those are warning signs, Jessica said, her voice professional but compassionate. The isolation from family, the sudden changes to the will, the new medications. We can send someone to evaluate the situation discreetly. Watching her work, Maya felt a maternal pride she hadn't expected. The frightened young woman who had stood in the rain 6 months ago had transformed into a confident advocate for the vulnerable. The transformation reminded her of another young person she'd watched grow, Ethan, who now entered carrying a tray of sandwiches he'd made himself. "Lunch break," he announced, setting the tray down. "And before anyone asks, yes, I remembered Jessica's vegetarian." "You're becoming quite the chef," Maya teased, though she was genuinely impressed by his progress in the kitchen. "I had an excellent teacher." He handed her a sandwich, then paused. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you. The board met this morning." Maya's stomach tightened. Despite all the changes, she still fought the instinct to expect bad news, to wait for the other shoe to drop. "They voted unanimously to make you executive director of the foundation." Ethan continued, a smile breaking across his face. "Official title, full salary, and most importantly, the recognition you've always deserved." Maya sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "I don't have the qualifications." "You have 23 years of experience recognizing and responding to family dysfunction." Jessica interrupted. "You have the trust of every person we're trying to help because you've been in the trenches. You have more qualifications than any MBA could provide." "Your first official duty," Ethan added, pulling out an envelope, "is to read this." Maya opened it to find an invitation printed on expensive cardstock. "The Whitmore Foundation cordially invites you to the first annual Eleanor Whitmore Memorial Gala." "We're honoring Mom," Ethan explained, "and everyone who fights against predators like Camila, including you." Before Maya could respond, Harold burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "We have a problem. A good problem, but a problem." "What kind of good problem?" Maya asked. "Robert Chen just called. His article about the foundation has gone viral. We have over 300 requests for help, dozens of volunteers wanting to join, and—" He paused for effect. "A $10 million donation from an anonymous benefactor." The room fell silent as they processed this information. $10 million would transform the foundation from a small family operation to a major force against elder abuse. "We'll need more staff," Jessica said, already thinking practically. "More space," Ethan added. "More oversight," Maya concluded. "We can't lose ourselves in growth. The moment we become a bureaucracy instead of a family is the moment we fail." Harold nodded approvingly. Spoken like a true executive director. And that evening, as Maya walked through Eleanor's rose garden, she found herself speaking aloud to the woman she'd served for so many years. "We're doing it, Mrs. Eleanor. We're building something from the ashes of what she destroyed. I hope you'd be proud." A rustling in the bushes made her turn, expecting to see James the gardener. Instead, she found a young woman she didn't recognize clearly, distressed with tears streaming down her face. "Can I help you?" Maya asked gently. "Are you Maya Williams?" the woman asked. "The one who exposed Camila Whitmore?" "I am." "My name is Ruth Morrison. My grandmother— I think someone's killing her. The same way Camila killed Eleanor Whitmore." Maya's blood went cold. "Come inside. Tell me everything." Ruth's story was horrifyingly familiar. Her grandmother, wealthy widow Dorothy Morrison, had remarried a charming man named Vincent Gray 2 years ago. Since then, Dorothy's health had declined rapidly. Her children had been systematically pushed away, and her will had been changed 3 times. "The doctors say it's dementia," Ruth said, clutching a cup of tea in Harold's study as the family gathered around her. "But Grandma has moments of perfect clarity, where she begs us to help her, says Vincent is poisoning her. Then she forgets again." "Just like Dad," Ethan said grimly. "We need to act fast," Jessica said, already pulling up her laptop. "Vincent Gray. That's not his real name. I can feel it." "How do you know?" Ruth asked. Jessica's fingers flew across the keyboard. Because that's what they do. They choose names that are forgettable common. Gray Smith Johnson. Names that don't stick in memory. Harold was already calling Detective Walsh while Ethan contacted their lawyer. Maya sat with Ruth, keeping her calm as the machinery of the foundation sprang into action around them. Within 3 hours, they had uncovered Vincent Gray's real identity. Victor Grayson, a man with a history of insurance fraud, who had been mysteriously present at the deaths of 2 previous wives. He's not one of the architects, Jessica said with relief. He's a freelance predator, easier to catch, but harder to predict. We need a plan, Maya said. We can't just storm in. He'll claim we're the ones trying to manipulate a confused elderly woman. I have an idea, Ruth said quietly. Grandma's having a birthday party next week. The whole family will be there. Vincent can't keep us all away without looking suspicious. Perfect, Jessica said. We infiltrate the party, get access to Dorothy, and document everything. It's dangerous, Ethan warned. If he realizes what we're doing, then we have backup, Harold said firmly. Detective Walsh will have officers nearby. We go in smart, we go in prepared, and we get Dorothy Morrison out of there alive. The week of preparation was intense. Jessica trained Ruth on what to look for, what questions to ask. Maya coordinated with Dr. Morrison, no relation to Ruth, despite the shared surname, to have medical personnel ready. Ethan worked with the legal team to prepare emergency conservatorship papers. The night before the party, Maya found herself unable to sleep. She walked through the quiet house, ending up in Eleanor's study where her portrait watched over the room. We're about to do something dangerous, she said to the painting. But it's what you would have done. You tried to save yourself. Now we're trying to save others. Talking to Mom again. Ethan's voice came from the doorway. It helps, Maya admitted. Makes me feel less alone in this. You're not alone. You have Dad, Jessica, me, the entire foundation, the family you always deserved. The family we all deserve, Maya corrected, built on truth instead of lies. Speaking of truth, Ethan said, entering the room fully, there's something I need to tell you. I've been seeing a therapist, working through everything with Camila. That's wonderful, Ethan. She asked me to identify the constants in my life, the things that remain true even during the lies. You know what I said? Maya waited. You were the constant. Through Mom's death, through Camila's deception, through the revelation and recovery. You were always there, always true. Ethan, I'm not saying this right. He took a breath. What I'm trying to say is that you're not just family to me, Maya. You're the definition of what family should be. And I'm sorry it took me 40 years to see it clearly. Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. You see it now. That's what matters. The next day, Dorothy Morrison's birthday party was held at her estate in Connecticut. The Whitmore Foundation team arrived separately, trying not to arouse suspicion. Maya came as Ruth's family friend, Jessica, as a potential investor, interested in Vincent's supposed business ventures, and Ethan as himself, a fellow member of Connecticut's wealthy elite. The moment Maya saw Dorothy Morrison, her heart sank. The elderly woman was clearly drugged, her eyes unfocused, her movements sluggish. Vincent Gray, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s with silver hair and a practiced smile, never left her side. Mrs. Morrison, Maya said warmly, taking the elderly woman's hand. Happy birthday. You look lovely. Dorothy's eyes flickered with something recognition, fear, hope, before Vincent smoothly intervened. Dorothy's having one of her difficult days, he said, his voice full of false concern. Perhaps we should let her rest. Nonsense, Ethan said, appearing at Maya's elbow with practiced ease. It's her birthday. Surely she wants to enjoy her guests. Mrs. Morrison, would you like some fresh air? The garden is beautiful. Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly, but with so many witnesses, he couldn't refuse without seeming controlling. Of course, I'll come with you. Actually, Jessica appeared, touching Vincent's arm. I was hoping you could tell me more about that investment opportunity you mentioned. Ruth says you're quite the businessman. Trapped between maintaining his image and controlling Dorothy, Vincent hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Maya and Ethan gently guided Dorothy toward the French doors leading to the garden. Once outside, Dorothy's hand gripped Maya's arm with surprising strength. Help me, she whispered, her voice clearer than it had been inside. He's killing me slowly, just like what happened to Eleanor Whitmore. We know, Maya said gently. We're here to help, but we need you to be strong a little longer. The tea, Dorothy said urgently. He puts something in my tea. Every morning. Makes me forget, makes me sign things. Ethan was already texting Detective Walsh. Within minutes, the plan was in motion. Jessica kept Vincent occupied with investment talk, drawing him into the house's study to look at confidential documents. She'd prepared actually surveillance photos of his previous victims. Ruth gathered the family members quietly, explaining what was happening. Dr. Morrison arrived disguised as a late-party guest and immediately began examining Dorothy. Her symptoms are consistent with benzodiazepine toxicity, he reported quietly. Regular doses to keep her compliant, confused, but reversible if we act now. The moment of truth came when Vincent realized Dorothy was missing from the party. He stormed into the garden to find her surrounded by her family, with Maya and Ethan standing guard. What is this? He demanded. It's over, Detective Walsh said, appearing with two officers. Vincent Gray, or should I say Victor Grayson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, elder abuse, and fraud. Vincent's mask finally slipped completely. You can't prove anything. Dorothy's senile. No one will believe her. They'll believe the tea samples we collected, Jessica said, holding up evidence bags. The financial records showing you've stolen $300,000. The testimony of your previous victims' families. As the police led Vincent away, Dorothy began to cry, not tears of fear or confusion, but relief. It's over, really over. It's over, Ruth assured her grandmother, holding her close. The Whitmore Foundation will help you recover, Maya promised. Medical support, legal assistance, whatever you need. Dorothy looked at Maya with clear eyes for the first time. You're the maid who saved Harold Whitmore. Ruth told me about you. I'm not a maid anymore, Maya said gently. I'm someone who helps families heal from predators. You're an angel, Dorothy said firmly. Eleanor Whitmore's angel, still protecting families even after she's gone. The successful rescue of Dorothy Morrison transformed the foundation overnight. Media coverage exploded, donations poured in, and most importantly, more victims and their families began reaching out for help. Within a month, they had exposed 2 more predators and saved 5 elderly victims. But success brought new challenges. On a rainy Tuesday evening, Maya was working late at the foundation when she received an unexpected visitor, Camila's lawyer. My client wants to speak with you, he said without preamble. No, Maya said immediately. She has information about other victims, names, locations, methods. She'll trade them for a simple request. What request? She wants to see her daughter one time, supervised. Then she'll give you everything. Maya found Jessica in the garden, pulling weeds with violent intensity, her way of dealing with stress. She wants to see you, Maya said gently. Jessica didn't look up. I know. The lawyer called me first. I told him no. He says she has information about other victims. She always has information. That's her currency. Jessica yanked a particularly stubborn weed. But maybe I need to see her, to prove to myself that she has no power over me anymore. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. I have to prove it to myself. Jessica stood dirt on her hands, determination in her eyes. I'll do it, but only if you come with me. The meeting was arranged for the following week. Maya, Jessica, and Detective Walsh sat on one side of the reinforced glass, while Camila was brought in on the other. She looked older, grayer, but her eyes were still sharp as a blade. "Hello, darling daughter," Camila said through the phone. "Hello, Patricia," Jessica replied, using her mother's real name like a weapon. Camila flinched slightly. "I hear you're working with the Whitmores now. How disappointing. I raised you to be a predator, not prey." "You didn't raise me at all. Grandma did. And she raised me to stop people like you. People like us, you mean. You have my blood, my instincts. You can pretend to be good, but we both know the truth." Jessica leaned forward. "The truth is that I've spent my entire adult life undoing the damage you've caused. And I'll spend the rest of it making sure no one else becomes what you are." Such nobility. It must be exhausting. Camila's eyes shifted to Maya. "And you, the loyal servant. Still cleaning up messes, I see." "I'm executive director of the Whitmore Foundation," Maya said calmly. "I help families protect themselves from predators. Your victim list would be very helpful in that mission." "Would it now?" Camila smiled. "And what do I get in return?" "You've already made your request," Detective Walsh interrupted. "This meeting, that was the deal. That was to get you here. Now I want something else." "We're done here," Jessica said, starting to stand. "I'm dying," Camila said quietly. Everyone froze. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The prison doctors give me 3 months, maybe 4. She looked at Jessica. "I wanted to see you one last time, to tell you something." "What?" Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "That you were the only thing I ever created that wasn't a lie. The only real thing in my entire fabricated existence. I couldn't love you, I'm not capable of love, but you were mine. The only thing that was ever truly mine." "That's not an apology," Jessica said. "No, it's a fact. Do with it what you will." Camila pulled out a piece of paper, pressing it against the glass. 17 names. Victims I haven't been charged with. 3 are still alive, still married to their predators. Save them if you can. Consider it my only gift to you." Jessica took the paper with trembling hands. "Why?" "Because I'm dying, and even monsters want to leave some kind of legacy. You're mine. The good that you do that came from me, from my genetics, my choices that sent you on this path. I'll take credit for that, even from hell." As they left the prison, Jessica was silent. Maya wanted to comfort her, but didn't know how to address the complex emotions the young woman must be feeling. "She's wrong," Jessica finally said, as they reached the car. "The good I do doesn't come from her. It comes from choosing to be everything she wasn't." "That's right," Maya agreed. "But she's also right, that her evil created my purpose. Without her crimes, I'd never have dedicated my life to stopping predators. It's a horrible thought that good can come from such evil." "Good doesn't come from evil," Maya said carefully. "Good comes from choosing to transform evil into something better. That's what we're all doing, taking the pain Camila caused and turning it into protection for others." The list Camila provided proved accurate. Within 3 weeks, the foundation had helped law enforcement save all 3 living victims and locate evidence on the deceased ones. Each rescue felt like a small victory against Camila's legacy of destruction. The night of the Eleanor Whitmore Memorial Gala arrived with spring in full bloom. The estate was transformed with lights and flowers, the ballroom filled with supporters, survivors, and advocates. Maya stood at the entrance in an elegant dress, the first formal gown she'd ever owned, greeting guests she once would have served in silence. "You look beautiful," Harold said, taking her arm. "Eleanor would be so proud." "I hope so. I know so. You've turned our tragedy into triumph. That takes a special kind of strength." As the evening progressed, Maya found herself called to the stage. Ethan introduced her as the woman who saved the Whitmore family and continues to save families across the country. Standing at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, Maya felt the weight of her journey from silent servant to vocal advocate. 23 years ago, I came to this house as a maid, she began. I was taught that good service meant being invisible, being silent, being compliant. But I learned that sometimes the greatest service we can provide is to speak up, to stand up, to refuse to be complicit in evil through our silence. She spoke about Eleanor, about the signs they'd all missed, about the importance of believing victims even when the predator seems charming and credible. She spoke about Harold's strength in surviving, Ethan's courage in facing hard truths, Jessica's bravery in confronting her mother's legacy. The Whitmore Foundation isn't just about stopping predators, she concluded. It's about transforming pain into purpose, victims into survivors, and survivors into advocates. It's about proving that love is stronger than manipulation, that truth is more powerful than lies, and that families, real families, are built on choice, not just blood or circumstance. The applause was thunderous. As Maya stepped down from the stage, she was embraced by Harold, then Ethan, then Jessica. Even James Chen and his mother Sarah were there, part of this strange, complicated, beautiful family that had emerged from tragedy. Ms. Williams, a young reporter, approached. What would you say to other domestic workers who might be witnessing abuse in the homes where they work? Maya thought carefully. I would say that your loyalty should be to what's right, not to who pays your salary. That speaking up might cost you a job, but staying silent might cost someone their life. And that sometimes the most important work we do isn't what we're hired for, it's what our conscience demands. As the gala continued, Maya stepped out into Eleanor's rose garden for a moment of quiet. The roses were in full bloom, their fragrance heavy in the warm air. She thought about the journey from that terrible night when Ethan had struck her to this moment where she stood as a leader and advocate. We did it, Mrs. Eleanor, she whispered to the roses. We brought light back to this house. A hand touched her shoulder. Jessica stood beside her, tears on her face. The prison called, Jessica said quietly. She died an hour ago. My mother, Patricia, Camila. Whatever she was, she's gone. Maya pulled the younger woman into an embrace. How do you feel? Free, Jessica whispered. For the first time in my life, I feel free. They stood together in the garden, surrounded by the beauty Eleanor had cultivated and Camila had tried to destroy. The roses bloomed on, indifferent to human tragedy and triumph. But their persistence felt like a promise that beauty could survive evil, that love could outlast lies, that families could be rebuilt from even the most shattered foundations. Inside the ballroom, the gala continued. Harold was deep in conversation with potential donors. Ethan was demonstrating his new cooking skills at the buffet, explaining how learning to nourish others had helped him heal. Dr. Morrison was discussing new protocols for identifying medical abuse with a group of healthcare workers. "Should we go back in?" Jessica asked. "In a moment," Maya said. "Let's just stand here for a bit in Eleanor's garden and remember that we survived. More than survived, we thrived." "You know what the strangest part is?" Jessica said. "I actually feel sorry for her. My mother. She spent her whole life taking from others, but she never experienced what we have here. Real connection, real love, real family." "That's not strange," Maya said. "That's compassion. And it's proof that despite everything, she didn't destroy your capacity for humanity." As they walked back toward the house, Maya saw their reflection in the French doors, two women, one who had served in silence for decades, and one who had lived in shadows just as long, now standing together in the light. Behind them, the roses bloomed, witnesses to all that had transpired and all that was yet to come. "You know what I've learned?" Maya said as they reached the door. "Every ending is also a beginning. Camila's gone, but the work continues. The foundation will save more lives, expose more predators, protect more families. And we'll do it together," Jessica added. "The family that Camila tried to destroy, rebuilt stronger than ever." They entered the ballroom to find Ethan at the microphone calling for attention. "I want to make an announcement," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "The Whitmore Corporation will be establishing a permanent endowment for the foundation, $50 million, to ensure that the work Maya Williams started will continue for generations." The room erupted in applause. Maya felt her knees go weak, but Harold and Jessica held her steady. "Furthermore," Ethan continued, "we're announcing the Maya Williams Institute for Domestic Worker Advocacy, recognizing that those who work in our homes are often the first witnesses to abuse and exploitation. This institute will provide legal protection training and support for domestic workers who report abuse." Maya couldn't stop the tears now. Her name, once spoken only to give orders or assign tasks, would now stand for protection and justice. "This is too much," she protested. "This is exactly right," Harold said firmly. "You gave us back our lives, our family, our purpose. Let us give you this legacy." As the evening wound down, guests began to leave with pledges of support and promises to spread awareness. Maya stood in the entrance hall, where she had once stood, invisible, now shaking hands and accepting thanks from some of the state's most powerful people. But the moment that touched her most came at the very end. A young woman in a maid's uniform, clearly uncomfortable among the wealthy guests, approached hesitantly. "Ms. Williams, I'm Rosa. I work for the Hutchinsons. I think something's wrong in their house. With the old Mr. Hutchinson. His new wife, she's... Can I talk to you?" Maya took Rosa's hands in hers. "Of course. You're safe here. Tell me everything." As Rosa began her story, Maya saw Jessica already taking notes, Ethan, calling Detective Walsh Harold, preparing the Foundation's resources. They moved like a well-oiled machine now, a family united in purpose. The work would never end. There would always be predators, always be vulnerable victims, always be those who chose silence over safety. But now there was also the Foundation, the Institute, and most importantly, the proof that one voice raised in truth could shatter years of lies. Maya thought of Eleanor Whitmore, dead these many years, but somehow still present in every rose that bloomed, every life saved, every truth told. She thought of Camila, now gone, her legacy of destruction being steadily dismantled and replaced with something better. And she thought of herself, Maya Williams, once a maid, who saw too much and said too little, now a director who helped others find their voice. The transformation was complete, but the work was just beginning. And as the last guest left, and the Whitmore family, the real family bound by choice and purpose. Rather than blood alone gathered in the kitchen to share a late-night meal that Ethan had prepared, Maya knew that this was what victory looked like, not the absence of evil, but the presence of good, actively chosen, fiercely protected, and freely shared. To Eleanor, Harold raised his glass of wine. To family, Ethan added. To truth, Jessica contributed. To new beginnings, Maya concluded. They drank, and in the warmth of the kitchen, where Maya had spent so many solitary hours, she finally felt what had eluded her. For 23 years, she was home. Not as a servant, not as an employee, but as what she had always been in her heart, a member of the family. The night grew late, but no one wanted to leave. They talked about the foundation's future, about the lives they'd already saved, and the ones they would save tomorrow. They laughed about Ethan's cooking adventures, Harold's newfound energy, Jessica's transformation from fugitive to advocate. And when finally they did retire, Maya didn't head to the servants' quarters. She walked up the main staircase to her suite, her footsteps confident on stairs she'd once climbed in shadow. At the landing, Eleanor's portrait watched over the house, and Maya could almost swear she saw approval in those painted eyes. "We kept our promises," Maya whispered to the portrait. "Harold is safe. Ethan found his way back, and your roses still bloom." The house settled into peaceful silence, so different from the tense quiet of Camila's reign. It was the silence of safety, of truth told, and justice served, of a family that had walked through fire and emerged not unscathed, but unbroken. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Rose's story would need investigating. The foundation would face the growing pains of expansion. Jessica would have to process her mother's death and all the complicated emotions it brought. But tonight, in the house where she had served in silence for so long, Maya Williams, executive director, advocate, and finally family, slept peacefully, knowing that Eleanor Whitmore's legacy lived on, not in the money or the mansion, but in every life saved from the predators who thrived in shadow and silence. The roses would bloom again tomorrow, and Maya would be there to tend them, not as a servant, but as a guardian of all that Eleanor had loved, and all that love could still protect.